Hi, I'm Angie Hilton and welcome to Unbreakable Entrepreneurs. As business owners, major challenges are inevitable. So how do we steel ourselves to weather the storms? Here, you'll find real-life stories of resilience, as well as tips from thought leaders and mental health experts on how to become unbreakable entrepreneurs. Maxine Driscoll is an award-winning educator who has led international and independent schools in Asia and Australia for 20 years. Passionate about empowering future-focused leaders, Maxine has taken her vast experience into the corporate world and has launched her leadership coaching business, Think Strategic. As you'll hear, Maxine's journey has been quite an exciting adventure, but she also reveals how she dealt with the heartbreak of losing her brother tragically to suicide, followed by the loss of her mother and father. Warning, some people may find the discussion around suicide distressing. Maxine, so lovely to have you with us today. Thanks for joining.
My absolute pleasure, Angie.
I was just having a read through your list of achievements, and I don't even know where to start because you've done so much in your life. What I thought is, could we have a snapshot, a bit of a timeline straight from your mouth about where you started until where you are now?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Wow. It might take a while, mightn't it?
Wow. So I was a girl who grew up in the northern suburbs of Melbourne, and I went to a school that had a shocking pass rate. So I didn't do so well in my year 12 year, which was really disappointing because I'd done quite well before that. But I always knew that I wanted to be a teacher. So I ended up getting into Burwood Teachers College, which is now Deakin University, and I had to travel 45 minutes across town. And I did, and I loved it. And I walked in, the first day I walked into the cafeteria and I did not know a single soul. And so that, for me, was a great turning point because it's, well, what are your life goals and what are you going to do about it? So that was great. And so I got on with people. And anyway, Burwood Teachers College in Burwood then became Deakin University. And Deakin University changed my life, and it calls itself a worldly university. It absolutely is, because when I was in my second year, letters came out to the students, and they were hard-copied typed letters to say they were studying this new thing, and it was a trip to Europe over our summer break, and would you like to go? And I took home the letter. I was living at home and showed it to my mother. And I said, how do they think that we can afford this? Mm-hmm. And my mother, who'd Anglo background, never been out of Victoria, just looked at me and said, you're going, aren't you?
Oh, wow.
And so that just flipped. I was really lucky to have a very positive mother. So I thought, yeah, well, why don't I? So you had to sign up and pay it off. So it was the end of my second year in teaching, a diploma of teaching back in those days. And at the time, I'd met this very nice young man, and people would say, are you going to ask Rod? And I said, no, I mightn't even know him by Christmas time. But anyway, so it turns out he came too. So he was my boyfriend at the time. So off we went. And, we were 19 years old, and we were going through, punting down the canals of Venice, going to London, going to Scotland, going to Paris,
Incredible.
Belgium, Italy, Greece, Austria, Switzerland. It was, and then on the way over, transits in Singapore and Pakistan. So what was that? Karachi. It was just life-changing. And so when we got back, I said to my then boyfriend, we got on really well. I think we need to get married. And he said, yeah, but I'm too young to be married. And I said, how old do you need to be? And he said, 21. And I said, well, you're 21 in December, because I'm a little bit older than him. So let's get engaged in the February and let's get married in the August. So we did. And
that was your proposal to him, a very practical one.
Yeah.
I think we should.
And I think, yeah, so I knew what I wanted, and I thought he was the one. So so I went after it.
And he's still here.
We are still married.
After how many years?
46 years.
Oh
married.
My goodness, that's amazing.
And I remember listening to Janine Ellis speak up at the conference centre in Melbourne, and someone asked her what she could say what's the number one, her number one tip for success. And she said, choose your partner wisely.
Yes.
And to have that steadying influence or someone that loves and supports you. Anyway, so that was really quite amazing. And we thought that we would travel again. But of course, building your dream home, having kids, all of that gets in the way. So I started teaching in the government system and left that because when we had our first child, there was no part-time work back then. So I resigned. And then I was really lucky and I got a part-time position at the Geelong College.
Great school.
So that was great. So I was there for 13 years and it was so wonderful because not only were you teaching a lot, they were teaching you. The professional development was terrific. And so I learned a lot, but I knew that I was high achieving and I kept applying for leadership positions. And then the position at Cardinia International College came up and I'd been watching them and I really wanted to know more about the International Baccalaureate and they were doing that at the year 11 and 12 level. So I applied for that position and got it. And that was like, wow, this is my dream position because I started as a prep teacher and people tend to be very nice to prep teachers and early years teachers, but they tend to look down their noses and think, you work with kids all day. What do you really know? And I knew we knew a lot more. So I wanted that principal's position. And so I thought, wow, this is great. This is where I'm going to stay. And then I was really fortunate because the founding principal of the K-12 school asked me how would I bring in the International Baccalaureate to Cardinia. And I went, bang, I can do that. And I rang up people that I knew and I got a trainer in and I actually got my knuckles wrapped by the IB because I went outside their parameters in how you do it. But that's okay. I got it happening.
Amazing.
And as a new young school, we didn't have a lot of extra funds for professional development. So I invited any other schools in the region to come and attend the training. So Highton Primary sent their kids along, and that's how Highton Primary began being an International Baccalaureate school too. So I feel really proud of that.
Yes.
Anyway, so then Cardinia, we were trying to grow our enrolments. And so we started to send our Year 9 students for an 8-week experiential trip to Chiang Mai. And now when you talk to people in Geelong, a lot of people know about it.
Yes. So you were the first to bring that in.
So it wasn't me. John Goodfellow, the founding head, he was. And it was actually his wonderful wife, Debbie Goodfellow, who was doing marketing that found out about it. So we'd sent off our first cohort and then the second cohort, John went over to see how they were going. And the head of the school over there said, we're going to have a vacancy. We need someone to teach term 4 of grade 4. Do you know anyone? And John is just the most amazing man. So he came back and I was actually struggling at the time because my brother was dealing with severe mental illness. And John said to me, you need to go and do this. We'll pay you. You go and do it. So for 8 weeks, I went to 45 minutes out of Chiang Mai in the jungles of northern Thailand. And it's this amazing 100-acre site created by a Harvard-trained architect who's also a Thai royal. So he wanted to give something back. So he decided to create a 3-generational school. And not only was it the school, it would invite 5,000 kids a year would come to that school for experiential programs, and that's where we were sending our Year 9s. And that's become so successful that so many people want their kids to go to Cardinia.
Is that for a whole term? They go for a whole term?
Yeah. It's like an 8-9 week, and it is life-changing. Anyway, so I went over there for 8 weeks and did my little stint. And because I love to work globally and help people around the world. So that was terrific. And while I was there, I learned more about the International Baccalaureate. So I came back. And so this was when I started to understand about your own personal values. Often we'll work for organisations and we think, I like their mission or their vision or their purpose, or I like their values. But we forget to actually work out our own personal values. And of course, one for me is family and another one for me is integrity and compassion. But one of my personal values is, and I don't brag about it, but it's personal excellence. That everything I do, I want to do it as best I can. Anyway, so what I didn't realise is that when one of your values is personal excellence, other people notice.
Mm.
And so a year later, they rang me and offered me a position at that school in Thailand. And it was
Amazing.
like, wow. And it said women don't negotiate a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they tend, that's why we've got the glass ceiling.
Mm.
And I said, well, you're offering me a job that I'm already doing. Why would I say yes to this? I want more than this. I want to be the principal of a K-12 school.
Wow.
So they offered me the deputy head's role of a 3-program international baccalaureate school. And so it took a while. And my lovely husband said, you know what? I've had my turn being a GM. Come on, I'm just going to resign. I can even retire. Let's go and do it.
Yeah.
And our kids were living at home, and our kids were like 18 and 20, and they were at uni. And you know what? 20-year-olds want to live at home, but they don't want you there.
Yeah.
So we said, we're going to go and do this.
Yeah.
We're going to be the 20-year-olds. You stay here and, rent free, look after yourselves, and save up and get into the property market. So off we went.
Yeah.
And I would only sign 2-year contracts at a time. If you had have said to me, I would stay for 9 years, like.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, so I did. And so I took that school. So I ended up, did the deputy head for 4 years, and then got the head of school, or the principal of the whole school. And that was my big dream, to be a prep teacher and then be running a school that is an internationally accredited curriculum and globally minded school, and be looking after all of the teachers and all of the kids and all of the, we were a boarding school, so boarding interns, all of that, and then recruiting people from all around the world. So that was pretty amazing.
What a unique experience. How would you actually describe that to people? That time.
It was life-changing, absolutely life-changing. And it married that first trip when I was only 19 going to Europe. It's really so important to go not just on a holiday, but to actually interact with people in other countries and live and work in other countries. So while I was there, the International Baccalaureate asked if they could train me as a accrediting team leader. So I went to Singapore and did that, and that was amazing. So I ended up going to 25 different countries doing accreditation on their schools while I lived in Thailand. And of course, we made sure all of our friends, my family, my parents, my husband's mother, our kids, that they all came and had an experience there. Wow. So it was just wonderful. But then ultimately, if family is important to you, so we came home August 2014, and that's when I founded Think Strategic. And what I thought it was going to be, it's way different to that now. But I was determined, because one of my gorgeous Year 12 boys said to me, so I said, hey, Julian, and he was German Thai, and I said, where are you going to university? And he said, I've applied to Harvard, because Harvard used to say, we'll give you an education to get a job anywhere in the world. And then he said, now they say, we'll give you an education to create the jobs around the world. And I actually felt, that feeling when you get your spine tingles?
Yes, I do.
And I thought, wow,
He's
I've
onto
never
something.
done that. I've never created my own job. How do I do that? Yep. And so my mother and father both had small businesses, and then my daughter had started her second business, and I thought, right, I'm going to start a business. And so I didn't know what that looked like. But in Thailand, I was getting up every morning at 5 a.m. because I'm determined. And so I do from 5 till 7, getting onto ASIC, registering the business name, finding a graphic designer in Melbourne, all that sort of stuff. So when I left, I could hand out business cards and say, this is what I'm going to do. So then we came back. And so then I went to the Geelong Small Business Festival, and how awesome is that? I went to 22 sessions in my first year. So then the next year I went to about 20 sessions. So I met incredible people. So then I launched the website, and then I used the Geelong Conference Centre, and I had my first workshop, and I realised I needed to have workshops for people to understand what it was that I was doing. And so I had the qualifications and the lived experience to talk about leadership for the 21st century, like move away from that so many organisations still have got that hierarchical, traditional, and dare I say, patriarchal way of leading organisations, So So I came back thinking, this is what I'm going to do. And originally I thought I would do strategic planning in schools. And then I thought, actually, what I'm sharing translates to the business and corporate sector. So, but then I got this amazing phone call in 2016, and it was a 23-year-old asking me if I'd fly to Phnom Penh in the morning and to meet her and see a 16-acre site that they wanted to set up as a international baccalaureate school.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, like that was, and we were actually, it was Friday night, and we were sitting on the shores of the Indian Ocean because I must have done a good job, because the Royal, who owns the school, and even King Bhupenpol was one of the board of governors. So it was, he invited me to be on the board of governors of the school, of which I still am. So every year, this is before COVID, I would fly over for the annual general board meeting. And so we were, and what do you do when you go to Thailand? You don't just go and then come back. You go down south and you enjoy the southern beaches. So it was Friday night, and my husband and I were sitting on the shores of the Andaman Ocean looking at the sunset, and behind us is this gorgeous place called Out of the Blue, and they had, like lots of places do, it was a bar, and they had 2 drinks for the price of 1. So I'm enjoying a Friday night cocktail, and that's when the 23-year-old rang me, complete stranger, and it's who you know and how you impress people because you've got that personal excellence. And so a woman that I'd met 20 years ago that I'd bumped into at a conference in probably it was Bangkok, and I asked her if she'd write a testimonial to put on this new website. And because of that, this in Australia, a consultant had asked her if she would help this family, and she said no, she didn't want to, but she gave them my name. Like, so out of the blue. So we flew off the next morning. I arrived at a building site that was a lot of mud, and you know, it's the monsoonal season, lots of mosquitoes, and really just builders and scaffold and you know, a lot of wet concrete and all of that. But they took me into this secondary building part that hadn't been finished, but took me up, very unsafe, up to the top floor, and that was going to be an auditorium. And you could actually look past and you could see the new growth in Phnom Penh. And if you recollect, like the whole Pol Pot regime in Cambodia, there's a real renaissance in Cambodia. And if I was a teacher in Cambodia, I would, because of my age, I'd be killed. And so the education system in Cambodia is, the government system is very poor. And so this family were asking me, would I help create an international baccalaureate school in Cambodia? And I thought, wow, why wouldn't I? So I said yes. So I said, but only for 2 years, because I've known that because what happens, my heart gets involved in the passion and the purpose of what we're doing. So I worked there with no one. And so then I had to I started project managing, and then I realised I'm going to employ my husband. He's going to be my business manager.
Perfect.
So that was great.
and so he was happy to just go along with each step, everything that pops up for you. He just, that is so amazing. What's his name?
Yeah. His name's Rod.
So, and his background was in business?
So yes, in business, and we both grew up in Melbourne, and then when we came, we did sea change to St Leonard's in our early 20s and renovated a little shack there. But he was in mechanical engineer. And then when I got the offer to go to Thailand, I was happy to go. So it was
what an adventure.
Wonderful.
Oh, I love that.
It was an absolute adventure. But then to come home and to think we've settled at home, and then to have round 2 go to Cambodia. So he came with me to Cambodia, and when you see the pictures, you won't believe it. So we took it from nothing and a building site to a 2-building primary and secondary school, 36 square metre air-conditioned gymnasium, 25-metre swimming pool, all the kids, all the teachers, all the cleaning staff. I employed all of them. And then I created the curriculum and then infused the international baccalaureate curriculum with it.
Gosh.
So all that lived experience, I really know how to recruit high-performance 21st century contemporary teams, and I know how to lead them. And then like when we're in Thailand, I had not one but two military coups. So the whole boarding school, we were on curfew because there were people being killed in
my goodness.
Chiang Mai and clearly in Bangkok that was televised. And then we had kids from all around the world as boarders. And of course, then we had the global financial crisis, lost 25% of our enrolments. And then the school was flooded, not once but twice. And so I was up to my chest in water. Wow. And that's when you know people don't want to collaborate. In a crisis, people actually want you to show confidence and have a plan.
Yes.
And so then all through COVID, I started to pivot and create webinars to help people understand leadership in challenging times. Don't try and collaborate. Don't try and make everyone feel good. It's like get a plan and be confident and share it with them and make them feel safe and valued. So, yeah.
So, oh gosh, you sound so resilient and driven and so much energy. And have there been times that are really tricky for you where you've thought, oh, I actually need to step back? Or do you feel like you always have a solution and get through things?
Well, that's a really good question because, as I said to you, my brother was suffering quite severe mental illness and I was his carer. And then ultimately, and the horrible thing is, he took his life, and that was just gut-wrenching. And I was the principal of the school in Thailand when that happened. But we came back very regularly, and of course, it broke my mother and father's heart. So within 9 months, my father died, and within 9 months after that, my mother died. So I was constantly organising funerals and giving eulogies, and then trying to cope with my. And my brother had bipolar, which then was diagnosed as schizoid affective. And the mental health team in Geelong were wonderful, and I would meet with him all the time with him. But ultimately, he couldn't cope with the medication, would really dull him so much that he didn't like that side of him, and his wife and his children all left him. It was just horrible. So when he died, and my daughter said to me, Mum, why don't you stay here? So I was back home and I said, darling, I've put up my hand to lead 600 people. That's my responsibility. So I'm really, how can I say it, passionate about leadership is responsibility. And if you can't take it on in the bad times, then you're not really an effective leader. And so I was sort of battling with in my own head. And the thing about grief is, you know, people are lovely to you when someone dies, but they forget about it after a week or 2 weeks.
Yes.
It's in your head. So I was trying to manage that. I remember that Christmas I came home and I couldn't get out of bed. I just cried and cried and cried. But then it was like, you know, that old saying, onwards and upwards. And then what's that gorgeous woman, Ariana Huffington, she says, onwards, upwards and inwards. So I listened to the school nurse and she said I needed to go and have counselling. So I went to a counsellor once and I sort of did a big dump of how I was feeling, but ultimately it's like get on with it. And you know, I can only really talk about it now without dissolving into tears. For a long time I couldn't talk about it. And then so I've learned to manage that and see what you can do, and rather than, you know, Henry Ford, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
So,
amazing.
And this is my life, YOLO. You only have one life, and what do you want to get out of it? So you've got to redirect your focus without letting go of someone that you really love. And it's your memories and it's your tributes that it's your self-talk and how you think about them all of the time. But yeah. And my father was very wise. My father said that was his choice, which at the time, because I'm the big sister, and it's like, how could I have stopped that? How could I have, you know? So there's a bit of self-persecution goes through that. But,
of course, yeah.
But ultimately, I had my own children. I had the children at the school, and so you've got to get on with it. So that's been really tough.
Mm.
But it also opens up a whole new prism of understanding others. Because
Yes. Yep.
a lot of people go through this challenge, and then the research on teenagers that are taking their lives, and then through COVID, and that's increased. So it's given me a greater depth of understanding and empathy. And
so going through that, did that change how you led your teams, or how you parented? Just are you having more open conversations around this sort of thing?
yes, it does change your conversations, but it also changes what you observe. And how at the school in Thailand we had in boarding, we had quite a few self-harmers, and it raises your alertness. You actually start to see things. I saw this years ago on a TV program, and they talked about sane people don't understand insane people, and when your whole life has been reasonable, and when things go out of kilter, but you can see the reason for it, it's very hard to understand people who have a mental illness, because things that they do are quite out of the ordinary. They're quite bizarre. You keep trying to rationalize it and you can't. So it actually helps you understand some behaviors that beforehand you mightn't have understood.
So what advice would you have to people that may be in a similar circumstance?
So one of the mistakes I made was, because I'll get upset talking about it, but one of the mistakes I made was I spent with my brother's wife. They had a 6 weeks program at the hospital. You could go over night time with a mental health for the carers or the families, and that was wonderful. And so I learned a lot more about how to help him, how to medicate, whatever. But he wouldn't continue to take his medication, and I found that very frustrating. And so in the end, I'd say, Doug, you really need to take your medication. If I had my chance again, I would never say that. Because
really? Okay.
when you say to someone, you need to do this, and so I've actually used this moving forward when I do my professional coaching with people, I will never tell anyone this is what you need to do, because you're giving them a mandate, and you're employing, you're using power over them, and you're not listening. So I think. And it's so hard living with people with mental illness. It's so challenging. You get things thrown out that you left field. Like he rang me one day at work when I was at Cardinia, and I was about to give a speech to 500 people for graduation, and he's telling me how I'm absolutely obsessed and how I'm the devil, and how do you have a conversation with someone it's really hard.
That is so hard.
So I suppose it's about recognising that we don't have the skills to deal with mental illness, and so it's about getting counselling for yourself as a family member or a carer, and accessing the mental health team in Geelong at the time were just like, I can't speak more highly of them. And it's also recognising, genetically we were all predisposed. What I can remember, my grandmother as a little girl, she was behaving in unusual ways. And so when I asked Mum about it, in actual fact, some of us get asthma, and some of us get bipolar, and so it's accepting that it's an illness, and how do you treat the illness? And the person that's acting in really bizarre ways, they're not doing it to hurt you or that they don't like you. It's because their brain chemistry is making them act that way. So the best advice I can give is get yourself advice and skills, and because I think we, out of love, try to help that person, and then we can get frustrated because we think it's quite logical and this is all you need to do. You only need to take a medication.
Yeah,
well, it's not like that.
Not that simple. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So moving on.
Yes. So then you're back in Australia. You've started Think Strategic. And how would you describe what that is to our audience?
So it's really exciting for me to be asked that question, because I recently got nominated for the Geelong Business Excellence Awards, and I never thought that would happen to me, a solopreneur. or a micro business. And so I applied and I thought, well, that's really good. But and then I was chosen as a finalist. So then I had to have a judge's visit. So I have to tell you, Angie, I'm in the best headspace to tell you what it means.
Great.
Because I founded it 8 years ago, and what it has become is it's a global leadership consultancy where I'm the solopreneur, but I'm a passionate, highly qualified educator, and I understand how adults learn. So I'm passionate about helping other people that are brave enough to put themselves into leadership positions, whether it be a manager or a GM or a CEO or the head of a school or a head of a team in the corporate world. I have learned and I have researched. I've got so much at my fingertips about what makes you an absolutely fabulous leader and how you empower all of the people on your team and you unleash the collective intelligence of everyone. And I suppose going right back to Geelong College and what they taught us then about, we had a wonderful professor come in to teach us about whole brain learning. So I've pulled everything from what I've learned over the last 20 to 30 years to create quite amazing programs. And so I do professional coaching, executive coaching. I go into organisations and do strategic planning for them, or I help them vision and create their mission and vision. And I also do really fun workshops, because it's not about sitting down and making learning boring. It's about understanding that we need to get up and move around and we need to collaborate. So I do workshops on high-performing teams that I call, is your team awesome or is it toxic? And how can we change it from being toxic to being awesome? Or as a leader, what are you doing to actually create toxicity in your team? And so that's a big thing about my leadership. If you start blaming people or blaming your teams, you're actually not being a future-focused 21st century leader. You're actually being that traditional leader that thinks something's wrong, it's someone's fault.
Right.
So mine is all about, it's, how do we move forward together?
So what would be some of the key ingredients that make a great leader?
So I think it's your own personal drive, but it's your own humility to understand you don't know it all. And you've got to surround yourself with amazing people. You employ people that are more intelligent than you and think differently to you. And that's way different to the past. The past was, I'm going to employ you. I like you. You seem a lot like me. I'm going to employ you. So I actually help organisations with recruiting too. And I help people unlock if they're clever, creative, logical, or abstract random. And so I give people the language to say, this is how I think. And within a team, this is what I'm really good at. Oh, you're really good at that. I need those skills. So I suppose one of my biggest mantras for leadership is, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead anyone. So it's finding out about yourself, finding out what you're good at and finding out what your foibles are, and then surrounding yourself with amazing people that you can get them to do the things that you're not good at. But it's also about really supporting your people and helping them learn and grow. Did you know that 85% of people will leave an organisation if they're not learning and growing? This is Deloitte 2019, put this out before COVID. 85% of people are disengaged from their work and they're actually actively disengaged. So those people, you're not leading them well. And it's how do you harness? And nowadays it's unlocking the values and the purpose of our people, because if you don't have a values, purpose-driven organisation, people leave. They want to do something, and our Gen Zs and our millennials especially want to be doing something that makes a difference. There's just recently McCrindle published 61% of Gen Zs, so they're your kids that have just entered the workforce, they're up to about 25 years of age. They have a fear that they won't get a job that's purposeful and aligns with their values.
That's incredible, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
How important is it for leaders to really get to know their staff, to know, not just what they can do, but their personal life? Do you think that's an element of it?
I absolutely do. And so what I learned living in Thailand, it was a boarding school and all of our teachers were required to live on campus. So we were all in 3-story buildings in clusters. And so we actually lived together. So we got to know people's children. We got to work with our Thai team. We had about 300 Thai people working for us from the local village. It was really important that you got to understand them. And so that was a part of my leadership journey that helped me understand the person at work isn't just the person at work. And sometimes, like me, I would be, when I was at Geelong College, I'd actually sneak out of my classroom there was a stairwell, and I just would get out there when my brother was still alive, and I'd had a session with him and the psychologist, and I'd have a little cry, and then I'd go back in and keep going. Well, people didn't know that about me. They didn't know I was really struggling with life at the moment. So it's absolutely paramount, because people are they're beyond that face you see.
Yeah.
And if you want them to be their best, it's understand them and their challenges, not just at work, but in their home life too.
Do you think it's important as a leader to show some vulnerability as well?
Yes. You've got authentic leadership is, so my biggest mantra is it's about authentic leadership. It's about transdiscipline. I can't think of that word. So what I want to say is visionary leadership, and it's about showing that you're real. Understand your blind spots and actually own up to them and share with your team. I'm not so good at this, or I'm not managing this well, but you're really great at this. Would you take on the responsibility to do this? Because I think this is an area that you would shine. And when you say that to somebody, they go, wow, she thinks I'm good at this. Wow, she's going to trust me. And you know what happens? They do it all. I have to say, Angie, I'm not a supporter of accountability. I really don't like accountability, because accountability is like, I'm going to hit you with a stick if you're not good. Whereas if you say, well, you take the responsibility for this, hey, how do you think this looks? How would you do it? Oh, awesome, go and do it. People, that's how you get people to grow and thrive.
Empowering, isn't it? Yeah.
And ultimately, for me, rather than talk about accountability, I talk about responsibility. And I suppose that's what pulled me through when my brother died. It was, what's my responsibility here? I've put my hands up and said, this is what I want to do. I've got 600 other people depending on me. What am I going to do?
Just keep getting back up. And do you think it's important to have a great support network? Obviously, you've got your beautiful husband and your children, but how important is that to you?
Oh, amazing. Absolutely paramount. And when I came back from Cambodia, we'd been in the Geelong area for a long time. When you're away for 10 years, people forget about you. So I joined some business networks, and I actually took the time to write down all of the small businesses that I use in Geelong. I use over 53 small businesses in Geelong to help me get information out to the world. And when I did that, I thought, wow, that's like incredible, because I'm helping other people to learn and grow.
Yeah, so good. So I need to let you go, even though I could talk to you all day, but what's in the immediate future? Anything coming up that you're passionate to start or do?
So that's a really good question. And so because I've been branching into the entrepreneurial world, the business world, the corporate world, I just love, really, my dream client is women 25 to 55 that are high achieving and they want to be the leaders of the world. I want to help those women, because we still, we don't have enough women in leadership roles, and it's challenging for women because we're the nurturers of the tribe as well. So if we've got family, we're torn, but you can do it all. I forgot to tell you, so I've written a book, and it's called Leadership Really Matters, and that was so hard to get the time to write that book. So went back to my old thing about getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning and just, smashing out a couple of hours every morning. But I'm going to write a second book. And I'm going to call it something like Be That Woman. Like, be that woman that wants to have everything they dream for in life and to be that leader and get it done. And yeah, there's going to be hard stuff along the way.
And in terms of, because you obviously work very hard and have done for a long time, what self-care routine do you prioritize to look after yourself? And
that's a terrific question, because we all, as women, we put everyone else first, and some of it's one of the habits that hold women back is perfectionism or trying to please, the disease to please. And so it took me a long time, but I learned my own little formula, and it took me years, and I nutted it down to basically a matrix. And so every day I tick off things that I should do, and when I don't do that, I'm not my best. And so through COVID, I worked really hard because I lost a lot of money and I lost all of my clients, because no one's going to employ a consultant when you don't know if your business is surviving or if you've got to lay people off. So I had to pivot really quickly, and I worked really hard with, I created a whole series of leadership in uncertain time free webinars that went out to, like, I had people from 52 different countries here talking to me here in my home office in Geelong. It was just fantastic. And then from that, I led it into a paid masterclass program. But I ended up getting shingles, and I don't think I'm someone that should get sick. Like, I'm full of energy, and I got it really badly. And when you're a sole trader, you've got no one else to do the work, and so that was awful. And I thought, right, I have to, and as times have changed, I've got through COVID. So I've actually, as a sole trader, set a wellbeing budget. I told my accountant I want a budget for wellbeing. So
Great. Yes.
I go and have a massage once a month. I get my nails done. I get my hair done. I go to a naturopath. I have Bowen therapy, and I buy lovely fresh fruit and things for the office, and that all comes out of my wellbeing budget.
That is brilliant.
So that's what I've done, because I know how you really have to take care of yourself.
Yeah. I've never heard of that. I love that.
And also I've got a gym, like a gym subscription, and I go to this wonderful young woman who's a sole entrepreneur, and she's called Team McLean, and I go to her twice a week for my own personal PT, and it comes out of my wellbeing budget, and it comes out of my business.
Perfect. Amazing. That's very inspiring. Oh, well, I love everything about what you're talking about. And I think there's lots of women and men that would just love to be part of what you're doing. So where can we find you if we want to hunt you down to lead us?
So I've got two websites. I've got my website that I do work in school. So that's called thinkstrategic.com.au, and when you bounce on that website, you can then choose to go to the business and corporate sector website, and that the business website is called thinkleadership.com.au. And then, of course, I'm everywhere. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. So I'm on Instagram as Think Strategic, and I'm on Facebook as Maxine, but also Think Strategic. So it's my mantra. How do you think strategically about you want to have the best life you can? And there's only one person that can make it happen. So get out there and YOLO, #YOLO. And the other thing, I also say #LOEP. Life offers endless possibilities.
Oh, I love it. Oh, gosh. Well, you've inspired me. I'm coming to find you. Thank you so much, Maxine. It's been great to get to know you, and I look forward to seeing you hopefully at one of the chamber meetings soon. Will you come down? Yeah,
absolutely. So I've been a member of the chamber for about 14 years. So I often come to the after fives. And so I think the chamber does a fabulous job for for all businesses.
Yeah, it's great for the community, isn't it? And we'll see you at the Geelong Business Excellence Awards. Good luck.
You will too.
How exciting. Okay. All right, thanks so much. See you again.
Lovely to talk to you. Bye.
You too.
I'm Angie Hilton, and thanks for listening to Unbreakable Entrepreneurs Podcast. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and head to geelongchamber.com.au for more wellbeing tips. This has been brought to you by the Geelong Chamber of Commerce and the Partners in Wellbeing program.